House Democrats are racing to get their hands on Donald Trump's tax returns before the Republican majority takes over the House in January. On Tuesday, the Supreme Court cleared the way for the House Ways and Means Committee to see 6 years of tax filings from the former president and some of his businesses. The Treasury Department is now cleared to hand them over, but how soon that will happen or whether the public will ever get to see any of them remains unclear. Joining me now, Washington Post Deputy National Editor Phil Rucker, author of A Very Stable Genius. Politico White House Editor Sam Stein is with us, as well as former federal prosecutor Glenn Kirschner. It's great to see you guys. So, Sam, there have been calls for Trump to release these tax returns since the 2016 campaign. What are the chances Democrats get them before the new Congress in January, or, and maybe this is the trickier question, that the public ever sees them?
So the chances are good that the Democrats on the House Ways and Means Committee will get them. Trump has exhausted his legal options here, the Supreme Court ruling being the last one. There are 6 weeks remaining until Congress shifts power, the House shifts power. I think that's ample amount of time for them to get the tax returns themselves. The bigger question is the public, right? There are restrictions, as I understand, on what the House committee can do with these tax returns, including whether or not they can turn them over and make them public, because in part they need to and had to have requested it for a legislative purpose. But still, I think this should illuminate some stuff with respect to Donald Trump, including why he fought so hard to keep them from getting public in the first place.
So speaking of Donald Trump, Phil, he responded on his own social media platform saying, quote, "Why would anybody be surprised that the Supreme Court has ruled against me? They always do." There was also movement on the Mar-a-Lago documents case yesterday from the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. Judges appear likely to rule in favor of the Justice Department and find that the special master reviewing those documents overstepped. How's all this going over at Mar-a-Lago? What are you hearing, Phil?
Not well, Chris, but let's be clear about something. He's saying that the Supreme Court ruled against him, but it's not a ruling based on, whether they support Donald Trump or not. It's a ruling based on their assessment of the law and whether the Treasury Department is, should provide these documents to Congress. There was no dissent among the 9 justices, so that means that the 3 justices nominated by Donald Trump when he was president all voted in agreement that this was legally sound and the way forward based on their review of the law. So it's not a personal judgment about Trump. It's just an assessment of the law. But clearly, Trump is agitated by this. He has fought for years now to keep these tax records from the hands of congressional investigators and from the public view. He's lost that battle, as Sam was just explaining, and so now it's a question of what's actually in the documents and what that really means in the context of him now running to return to the White House as president in 2024.
So, Glenn, from a legal standpoint, what do you make of this ruling as Phil just said, the assessment of the law? And where does this potential release of Trump's tax returns, or likely release, I guess we say, fall among Trump's mounting legal problems?
Yeah, so I agree with Phil that the Supreme Court didn't rule against Trump. It ruled against a largely frivolous legal position that Trump's lawyers took. And, it seems to make sense on the legal front, Chris, that when you have a president who is involved potentially in all sorts of financial entanglements with foreign companies, with foreign banks, that Congress really should, and I think has a responsibility to see whether legislating some sort of, reporting transparency by a president who is in Donald Trump's position, is bragging about how he, never pays taxes or can really dramatically reduce all of his tax liability, and who forever is saying that he's been under audit for how many years now. We don't know if that's true or not. It does feel like this was a necessary step, and it took a long time, but now at least Congress will be in a position to begin to assess whether there is some legislation necessary to prevent this situation from recurring.